Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by asking you all a question. How many of you, when you were younger, were told to just be yourself? Show of hands. Look around, that's a lot of you. Now, you may have learned this message in elementary school or from your favorite Disney movie, but have you thought about it more since you were a kid? After all, though this idea is good on the surface, it is a little bit optimistic. From a young age, children begin exhibiting the human tendency to form social groups, which will inevitably exclude others. These others are usually perceived as being somehow different, which prevents them from being accepted into the main group. But what do these excluded children think of being taught to be themselves and then see how they are treated differently by their peers? Now, I grew up with cerebral palsy, which is a disability that impairs my muscular coordination and balance. I experienced this contrast between what I was told and what I experienced. Though I was nice to everyone when I was a kid, I still felt treated differently. Sometimes my teachers would talk to me in a babying tone of voice, and I was often asked by my fellow students about the braces I wear on my legs, usually in the form of what happened to them or what was wrong with them. And because I was treated differently, I viewed myself as being different from those around me. There were times when I was using a walker or a wheelchair, recovering from the surgeries I had to improve my walking ability. And though it was challenging at times, I was living my best life in the circumstances I found myself in. As I grew older, I continued to see myself as being different from those around me. Most teenagers are, to some degree, concerned with fitting in to the community around them. But I believed that because of my disability, I couldn't be seen as normal. I viewed myself as an outsider just by nature of my physical differences. So, as I grew older, I became more concerned with pushing my boundaries into areas that I had previously not considered possible. For example, in high school, I joined the marching band. I was nervous because I had never been in a physical activity with my non-disabled peers before. I asked myself, would I be able to participate? The answer was yes. Though it was a challenge at times, I look back at my time in the marching band as a source of some of my favorite memories with my high school friends. So I had proven to myself that my feelings of self-doubt were exaggerated. But it was not until recently that I began to question my underlying assumption about myself. So how different am I from anyone else? How different are any of us from each other? Now, when I say we're going to talk about disability, you may have various reactions to that. After all, there's a wide range of people here, and each one of you has your own ideas and experiences about people with disabilities. Some of you may have explored ideas related to disability before, and some of you may have not. You may have never considered the disability community as a social group at all. You may not know that disability studies is a field in academia, focusing on disability and its perception in society. The disability community is not often discussed as much as other marginalized groups are. So when I talk about my disability, you may have felt pity for me, or maybe you even felt uncomfortable. Why does it feel awkward when disability is brought up? Why is this topic sometimes seen as taboo? I believe your reactions come from the media produced around people with disabilities. After all, the stories we are told about a group of people affect how we see that group in real life, and similar stories can create a generalized narrative. Harmful stereotypes can be created and sustained with a general idea. This is just as true for the disability community as it is to any other group. I've noticed that usually disability shows up in media in one of two ways. The first way is as a burden to overcome. A disabled character will start being pitied for their condition, and it will end with them overcoming their disability in some way to find success. There are some issues with this seemingly positive portrayal, though. It defines the character just in terms of their disability. It doesn't really look at their whole life and see their disability as an aspect of it. The message spread by this media is not, this person made positive change while living with their disability. It is, this person had to move beyond their disability in order to find success. Now, this is not to undervalue the accomplishments of famous people with disabilities. There have obviously been many examples throughout history, such as Stephen Hawking, Helen Keller, and Beethoven. But their disability should not be portrayed as merely an obstacle to their accomplishments. They're great because they achieved something significant while living with their disability. not merely in spite of it. When people doubt the achievements of famous disabled people, they're effectively saying that because someone has a disability, they're always limited by it. Though there will be challenges, just because someone has a disability does not mean they cannot live a rich, full, and successful life. The other way disability is usually portrayed in media is using it as a tool or an aspect of a usually villainous character. Think of bad guys with face scars and artificial body parts, or physical deformities being used to shock us in horror movies. This creates the impression that disability is disgusting and shameful, or the mark of an evil person. Throughout history, having a disabled child was seen as an omen from a higher power, warning of turmoil to come, or as punishment for someone else's sin. Indeed, even today, some people still feel ashamed for having disabled relatives. Disability is not something to be frightened of, and using it to scare us obviously negatively impacts perception of people with disabilities in real life. Now, thankfully, awareness of both of these portrayals has led to a push away from them into more realistic portrayals of disability. And I have two examples that I would like to share with you, and I encourage you all to find your own examples to expand your perspective. My first is R.J. Mitty's portrayal of Walter Jr. in Breaking Bad. Throughout the show, Walter White tries to connect with his son as a son, not as his disabled son. Walt Jr. interacts with other characters on the show at the same level as him. He's not talked down to, and there are times when he voices his opinions, sometimes really strongly. My other example is the character of Jimmy from South Park. Though at first he may seem portrayed very stereotypically, I think it's actually pretty well. There's a particular scene I like where he confronts the principal of his school over his job as the leader of the school newspaper, saying how he won't support the censorship of certain words. He's also the class comedian, and he grows up to be a very successful late-night host. Both of these characters have disabilities, but their disability is portrayed as an aspect of their character, not their character in its entirety. They engage in events and discussion beyond their disability, just as real people with disabilities do. People with disabilities are just living their lives like anyone else would. Now, throughout my talk, I've considered the disability community to be a clear group of people. But defining the boundaries for this group is a little more complicated. Disability crosses all racial and gender differences. And it's estimated that around 1 in 4 adults in the US are disabled in some way. But I think of disability as a singular group is insufficient. After all, there are some people like me who are born with disabilities, and there are others who develop disabilities through working or acts of service. Disabled thinker Ashley Hsu has observed that eventually everyone will be disabled. As our bodies age, we'll break down and we'll need maybe new joints or new fancy aids to help us walk or hear. Indeed, you have probably actually experienced disability at some point. You may have injured yourself and had to use a wheelchair, crutches, or braces to move around. So if everyone experiences disability, and everyone experiences it differently, why should we feel like there's a strong line separating people with disabilities from other people? If anything, living with a disability has taught me that we're not as different as we may believe. Now more than ever, we need to create positive change. We cannot fall into the perils of us and them. We should not define people into groups like disabled and non-disabled and forget to understand our common struggles. Though we can and should highlight groups of people for their accomplishments or to discuss socio-political issues, we should not use those groups as a way to separate ourselves from each other. We've physically grown up from those elementary school days, but have we mentally moved beyond the groups we created as children? We need to support the people that need help today, regardless of whether or not they're a part of our group. We should encourage each other, disabled or not, to teach a message of unbiased caring. And in doing so, we can move forward into a better world and for the first time, truly be ourselves. Thank you.